Welcome to the Sports Note for Wednesday, May 29th. And I had to kind of resort to a little different setup here as my camera continues to freeze on my Chromebook, so I'm actually recording this on my phone. So if you see me looking away multiple times, you know exactly why. But we had the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500 back on Sunday, and I've actually had this one in the can for the last few days. Um, but for everything that he's done right, the last 4 years, um, for Alex Palou to not have won at Indianapolis as dominant as he's been, having won three IndyCar Series championships in the last 4 years. Um, not to make the pun about the infield kind of party and concert area at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, um, known as the Snake Pit. But Palou has kind of been snake bit. Um, at that point. And again, I'm sorry for the joke. Um, but Palou finally broke through on Sunday and claimed his first Borg Warner Trophy as the winner of the 109th Indianapolis 500. Now, and Palou passed Marcus Ericsson, a former winner in Marcus Ericsson, on lap 179, and never, I'm sorry, 187, and never really gave the lead back. Really never was even challenged. There were a couple of times um, that drivers got close, but Ericsson was on right on Palou's tail for a couple of times, but Palou was being told save, save, save in regards to his fuel for about the last 15 to 20 laps before he made the pass on Ericsson. And then when he got the okay from his pit crew, just go for it and just take off. That's exactly what he did. Is he took off and never never really had a thought of being passed at that point by Ericsson. He also had the benefit of running into some lap traffic in the final 5 laps and was able to not only use the fuel that he had conserved, but be able to save some of the power as well by riding the draft off of those cars. It was a very, very inauspicious day for a lot of parties involved, namely the Penske cars for the second year in a row. And we're going to get to that here in just a moment. But for as dramatic and delayed as the start of the race was, it was a very, very anticlimactic end of it once Palou got the lead, as his nickname is the Surgeon. He's slow, he's methodical, he's precise. You don't see or hear anything bad about him. When he's on the track, he doesn't fail post race inspections. He's not docked points. He's not fined. Um, you have to keep in mind that Alex Palou is only 28 years old. He shouldn't be this good at 28 years old, folks. Um, this was where Scott Dixon in his late 30s was, you know, very dominant on the circuit, winning all the races, winning championships. Dixon still, in the mix, but this is now Alex Palou's circuit, and he he will decide when and how he chooses to win. Um, it was a very cool day in Indianapolis. Um, there had been some rain in the forecast earlier in the day. It was only 66 degrees in the air, and they said the track temperatures were well below 90 degrees, and that makes for a very, very cold racetrack. Um, you would figure that the fans wish they actually would have had 85, 90 degrees in the grandstands, as opposed to the chill that was there. And things got off to a very rocky start as the race was delayed 45 minutes, having to wait for the little bit of rain, more so like a mist, to pass through. First off, but secondly, to be able to get that track to dry out. And Scott McLaughlin, uh, one of the three Penske cars, had actually crashed on the opening pace lap. So McLaughlin didn't even get a chance to run a lap under green as he was warming up his tires and kind of, uh, serpentining the car back and forth down the front straight. He lost control and ends up breaking his left front suspension, hitting the wall in that front straightaway. You could certainly tell that he was dejected, as he would have actually been probably the best option for the three Penske cars going into the race between him, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Power. And now you're actually saying, wait a minute, I do actually, Power and Newgarden have formally, won this race. Newgarden was the two-time defending champion at Indianapolis and was looking to become the only driver in history to ever win three in a row. Um, Newgarden and Power were found to have had um, uh, adjusted or modified attenuators in the back of the car, and they were moved to the back of the field to start. So that was Power starting dead last, and Newgarden was starting 32nd. In the middle and outside of row 11. Now, uh, Newgarden would actually kind of change his fortune by the midway point of the race, and then things came crashing down. But for Newgarden to actually start in the middle of the field, and then crash out on the opening lap just shows you just the kind of day that we were in for. One of my personal favorite drivers, Alexander Rossi, uh, had a liquid of some kind coming out of his car, which was noticed on lap 73. He comes into the pits, and it was really only noticed because Palou was the car behind him during the caution lap, and it was collecting on Palou's windscreen and picked up by the Fox in-car cameras. Um, so if the camera was picking that up, you can only imagine what was going on with uh, what Palou was seeing there in the cockpit. So Palou kind of makes the mention of that with the cameras. They can actually rotate the lens to clear off the lens. They don't have that luxury with the windscreens. They don't run those cars in the wet weather. They would have to peel something off. There's no windshield wipers on those cars. So Rossi comes into the pits. They check the back end of the car. They don't see anything. They go to actually try to, take some tires off and try to figure out what might be happening. They take the left rear tire off, and the car bursts into flames. As apparently what they found was the gearbox had malfunctioned or melted, and it damaged either the fuel line or the fuel cell. And then that's actually what was found was all that fuel igniting. Uh, IndyCar did a great job of getting the fire extinguished very, very quickly. Rossi hopped out of the car without injury. And then one of his crew members actually was seen hopping back over the wall and being doused by the same retardant that the IndyCar safety crew was using to extinguish the car, because a lot of that fuel had gotten onto him. Now, thankfully, drivers and pit crew members wear a triple layered fireproof suit. We know that things can happen, but the gentleman was actually taken to the same medical tent that they use for the drivers when they're involved in crashes. Um, was treated and released a few minutes later. Actually came back out, sat on like some equipment, boxes or a stack of tires or something, in Rossi's pit box and watched the majority of the rest of the race. You can definitely see he still had a lot of that white retardant all over his clothing. Was holding up his hands. He was fine. He was, giving the thumbs up. He was a-okay. Um, but so again, ending Rossi's day. 10 laps later on lap 83, Renus VK coming into the pits says he lost his brakes. So his brakes lock up. He hits the wall, breaks his right rear suspension. Um, Pole sitter um, Robert Schwartzman um, ends up locking up in the pits as well 6 laps later. So thankfully, with VK in the pits, it didn't affect anything on the track. He was just trying to and it was just trying to get the car cleared of pit lane. So VK comes in, he set hits the wall. Schwartzman comes into the crew. His brakes lock up. He ends up coming in at an angle and ends up hitting four of his crew members. And one of them was actually treated for an injury to his foot, was actually carted off in an ambulance and was later found to be okay. He breaks his left front suspension, attributes it to being a rookie at the track. And then things kind of go from bad to worse. 4 laps later, we've got a crash that involved 3 drivers. At that point, we saw Stingray Robb, Kiffin Simpson, and Kyle Larson all have their days end. Now Larson was the most notable here because Larson was looking to become the first driver since Tony Stewart to do what they call the double, and that's run all 500 laps, all 500 miles of the Indy 500 earlier in the day, and then get down to Charlotte in time to run all 600 miles of the Coca-Cola 600, which, again, both races for the last number of years have been run on the same day. Well, this ends Larson's day. He will not match Tony Stewart by running the double. Later comes out and says it may not be worth it to run the double. Gets down there, starts the NASCAR race late, uh, was able to actually lead 34 laps, and then had another crash. So 2 crashes in the same day. At least he led some laps there. Um, and Rob was actually having a pretty decent car. Kiffin Simpson was having a consistent day. But then the bottom falls out for Joseph Newgarden. So we're pretty clean for the next 40 laps. So that happening on 93. Newgarden starts reporting some sort of issue with the car, comes into the pits, is basically begging his crew, I need to come in, I need to come in. Um, and then they actually find immediately some sort of fuel system issue. They tell him to cut the car, shut it down, it's over. So he goes from the back of the field, gets up to ninth, and then has a DNF on lap 135. Ryan Hunter-Reay, a former winner, his engine goes out when he comes in for his final stop on lap 170. And IndyCar a few years ago went to a hybrid chassis, so the engine would not fire with either the electrical system or the hybrid system. So Palou with the win. It's his 16th career win on the IndyCar circuit. He's the first Spaniard ever to win the 500. It's his first win in 29 tries on an oval. He was 0-9, 0-29 coming in. The 30th was the charm. Um, and then it also ties him for 26th all time on the IndyCar wins list with those 16 wins. And he's also won 5 of the first IndyCar Series races this year. And the only one he didn't win, he finished second to Kyle Kirkwood at Long Beach back in April. Um, so 6 podiums, 5 wins, 2 poles, and this is right now Alex Palou's world and circuit, and every other driver is just living in it. He will decide how and when he decides to win. He's already got a massive lead in the standings. He's looking for his third consecutive series championship. He's looking for another driver of the year award. He's already quelched rumors that he has no plans to jump to Formula One with his dominance on the IndyCar circuit. Really, why would he? And everyone, that we've seen with this, when Will Power had his dominance, they asked if was he going to jump. Juan Pablo Montoya, they said, is he going to jump to Formula One? Palou is actually sitting in the catbird seat right now that he can be as dominant as he wants for as long as he wants, again, at just 28. So let me know what you guys think. Did you see the race? Were you happy with the outcome? What was the most surprising for you? And where do you think Palou goes here for the rest of the year? And I will be back with you guys before too long. Take care.